Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. It's Easter Saturday and we're sat in the Millennium Garden and it is a most gorgeous day. I'm joined by Chris, and Chris joined us last week to do the dawn chorus, and I know there's loads of people out there who would have loved to have been able to walk up the hill to enjoy the birds, or were working or couldn't get up early. So we're going to share some of the birdsong from Millennium Gardens, but first Chris is going to talk to us about what we did last week and what we saw.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me this morning, Lindsay. That's great. One thing I need to ask you though is, where did you get that hair colour from? I think I need some. But let's think about last week. What we heard last week was a great dawn chorus, because we're not quite into the climax of the dawn chorus, but we're right at the beginning, so to speak. The weather was just perfect after all the rain, and it was partially due to the conditions of early spring that the birds have become so excited so early. And that's basically because there's more food around. One thing that you will notice is that during the day at the moment, now we've got rid of the rain, the temperatures are getting up to about 14 or 15 degrees, which is great for insects. Now, if you cast your mind back just before this year, then right back to 2013, we've had some very cold but dry and clear springs, and that's affected insect numbers. But by far the most important thing is habitat. So it's basically habitat resilience. So with all these different climatic effects which are coming in at the moment due to human-induced climate change, then what we need to do as conservationists is to make sure that the habitats are resilient enough that the wildlife can at least bounce back efficiently.
Thank you. It'd be really nice if you could tell us what you can hear in our church garden this morning. Sat here quietly. No, it's not dawn, but there's still an awful lot of bird song around us.
So it's about 20 to 10 in the morning, and we're just sat quietly in the Millennium Garden and just having a listen. Now, I know microphones are more sensitive than my ears, but basically what I'm picking up at the moment is Dunnock, rambling song of the Dunnock, quite close to us. We've got some jackdaws, obviously got a herring gull going over, and we've had some blue tits interested in one of the boxes here. In the very distance you can hear collared dove, and you can hear wood pigeon. There's goldfinch now behind me.
Just flew behind you.
Goldfinch behind me. So that's the interesting thing about birdsong, is that I don't need to look anywhere. I'm just listening and I'm picking these things up. And learning birdsong obviously is something that you can do at any time of your life. So going back to what I said earlier, that we have then a base of which we've got some wildlife here, some birdsong at least. It's not very loud, but there's things that we can do, subtle differences we can bring, then we can actually lift the bird numbers here within St. Peter's Church ground. And I think fundamentally that's really important, because the churches, if you look around the United Kingdom, the churches have always traditionally, that's a blue tit telling me off there, he's giving his alarm call, he's not happy at what I'm saying, obviously. Yes, stop telling me off. So what we need to do is to get back to that situation whereby the churches become very, very important for wildlife. And there's prime examples of this around the country at the moment, where churches are absolutely crucial in terms of the amount of wildlife that it can pack into sometimes quite a small area.
So if you sat here 20 years ago, or maybe even 30 years ago, as a child, what would you have expected to hear that we're not hearing today? What have we lost?
That's fascinating. That's a fascinating question. I would say number one thing that I'm not hearing this morning, that I would have got then, I would have been possibly deafened by the sound as well, is song thrushes. Gone. Missel thrushes. Gone. They're not here. And again, those are things that we can get back. Blackbirds aren't very loud. Now, although blackbird on the Birds of Conservation Concern list is still green listed, which means everything's okay with them, their numbers are definitely down. Dunnock, I mentioned earlier, is down. I would have expected also within the next couple of weeks to be able to sit in this place 30 years ago and hear cuckoo. No, there won't be cuckoos, simply because their host for this particular area would be the dunnock, and the dunnock is down in numbers. We still refer to the dunnock as common, but it's not as common as it was, and so therefore it's not available to cuckoos in the number that it should be. The other thing I can remember going back 30 years is that a pair of kestrels would have been nesting on the church, and they're not here. I haven't seen kestrel around here for quite some time. So, and of course at night, I would also encounter tawny owls, and the tawny owls would be breeding just over in the old vicarage.
Which is now houses.
Which is, as Lindsay says, is now houses. So, but everything I've mentioned sounds like everything is broken. What we've got to do is not think about it that way. What we've got to do is think about getting that back. And
you've challenged us to get the tawny owl back here.
Yeah,
so what do we need to do?
And the song thrush.
But all those will come, won't it?
What we need to do as a species ourselves is stop thinking of nature as something that we need to tidy up and be formal. We need a certain amount of untidiness. Now, before Lindsay got here, I've had a little walk around and there's examples of that, but we need to spread the idea. I understand that you need formal gardens, but you can incorporate the wild with that, have the two side by side. I understand that you need short grass in certain areas, but also you can mix short grass with long grass, and long grass can look absolutely stunning. And of course, long grass will harbour the majority of the insects and offer protection to those insects. But at this time of year, as the grass is growing, what's really important are those early spring flowers. And I'm looking around on the formal lawns here, and the first thing I see is the daisies. And the daisies can be absolutely vital for a lot of mining bee species that will actually be emerging right at this moment. And if we then come along and cut our formal lawns too early, what we'll do is depriving them of food. And because the air is a little bit chillier at the moment, they can't actually fly that high. They need to be down close to the ground. And so the plants that are offering them the food that they need are things like daisies and, of course, dandelions.
Okay, should we go for a walk and see what we can do and see what we find?
Absolutely, let's go. Beginnings here. Overhead, you've got some blackthorn growing, you've got bramble growing, and again the point to this is to allow this hedge to develop naturally and then control it. So control is quite easy, and above me is a blackbird saying, yeah, get on with it and get it growing because I'll nest here. So, and it won't take long. Nature doesn't take long. Nature's forever changing. So and you don't have to lose the edge, where you've also got some formal plants mixed in with. You've got ribwort plantain coming up here, which is a great wild plant. You've got dandelions coming up. We talked about dandies earlier. Everybody wants to get rid of dandies, but they're so important. Turn around between the graves and you've got loads of dandelions and obviously common daisy as well, which is so absolutely vital to this amazing living churchyard. And all we're trying to do here is to say, yes, we can make this better for wildlife, but at the same time, by doing so, we're making it better for people. You can cut this out if you want, but I'm going to say it. We often think of, for instance, a cemetery like this as an area of sadness, but actually what nature is trying to do with it is give it hope. So when you come here and you're, for instance, visiting a loved one, what you can basically do is sit and immerse yourself in the sound of nature, watch nature. There's a lovely, beautiful male blackbird on a gravestone down there now. And that's the hope. That's the hope for the future.